Achasa, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm on my third matcha of the day.
Third.
But I think it's okay.
Yeah,
How's your body feeling after turf games?
The pain. It's like it took me a while to get up the stairs. I can't lie. Yeah, it just turf games. It was an eventful day. But I'll do it again for sure.
Was there a ranking? Like, obviously, you're all in teams. Did you guys rank well?
So yeah, we came like 48th out of 100 teams.
That's not bad.
So it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And I know that there's places we can improve on. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, like next year trying to get that top 10.
Yeah.
Amazing, man.
Yeah. StepsITook podcast. We're back, and we've got
a fantastic power couple this time, and I'm absolutely gassed to have you guys here because it's good to see strength and unity.
100%.
And powerful progress. Like it's inspiring, honestly. So
thank you so
I'm
much.
really happy.
Intro.
Wow.
And so as a couple, you go by the name of Brickz with Tipz.
That's correct. Yes.
I think actually before we get ahead of ourselves, we've got a tradition. Chasa, why don't you?
Our tradition is we always like to ask you what's been the best part of your week so far.
Oh.
Is it the best part of the last 7 days or best part of the week?
As
A
in
week
what's
starting on
been-
Sunday.
been-
And no one's asked me that.
Yeah.
Really adding some.
Some seasoning to the
Take it how you will.
Okay, let's say last 7 days. What's
Last
been the
7
best?
days.
You go first.
Being in the sun. Yeah, because London is cold.
Yeah, facts.
So being in the sun, yeah.
Best part of last 7 days for me, maybe, I don't know, just like sometimes, when you get like a bit of peace when things are still busy around you. So I think there's some time that we were racing around, but we had some time to stop by for a bit of lunch whilst in Dubai. And like it's still busy around us, but it's kind of like, sometimes when time stands still. I always say to Antoinette sometimes, like even when we go on holiday, sometimes it's just nice to do simple things, like just go down to the lobby, have a coffee, 20 minutes, come back upstairs. Like, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So I think one of those periods.
It's
Actually,
not often.
to be fair, yeah, because
Like an
his
impromptu
brother just
lunch.
got married. So we've had a busy few weeks.
Yeah,
Nigerian
massively busy.
weddings.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So yeah, we literally came like 2 days after that. So a lot was happening.
Yeah.
It's not often you can just sit and be.
No.
Just
I'm
be.
saying,
Just exist for a minute.
Simpler things in life.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Oh, that's nice. What we like to do on the podcast is we like to kind of go back to the early years. Obviously, this is actually the first time we've had two guests on the podcast. So I'm kind of like asking you both at the same time, but what was like early life like for Tayo and Antoinette, in your early years? What was the household like?
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so how early are we going? Childhood?
Yeah.
Yeah? So I grew up in a fairly nuclear home. Mum and dad. I'm the eldest of three. So I've got one brother, one sister. And I actually have really happy memories growing up. Very close to my grandmother as well, my maternal grandmother. She basically helped raise us. It was, my siblings and I are very close. I was with them up until I got married at 28. So all very close and lived just outside London. So I originally grew up in North London, Edmonton, and then my family moved out to a place called Cuffley in Hertfordshire, went to an all-girls school, went to university, and that's actually how we met. We actually met on the first day of university. Good memories.
I love good memories.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. What were you like in the household then as the oldest sibling?
Oh. As the oldest sibling, I don't want to... was I bossy?
Is she bossy now?
Nah.
No.
Do you know what? I was quite territorial. Yeah, very territorial over my siblings. And so with my dad, we lost my dad last year actually, but he was a calm man, calm soul. So it's a weird one. As the eldest, a lot of my friends who are the eldest are quite like loud and dominant. I was actually the opposite. I'd say my sister, who's the middle child, is quite like the bossy one, the stir one. I was a bit more softer, a bit more calm. And I think I took that from my dad, who had that demeanor. But it was all, as the eldest, I did feel like, okay, if I do so, I had to be very mindful of my actions, because I did feel that my siblings looked up to me. So like my sisters studied the same thing that I studied at uni, for example. We've kind of mirrored like a couple of things that we've done in life, and similar to my brother as well. So I did feel that growing up as the oldest sibling. Yeah.
Who taught you to be mindful? There's not many children that will think, oh, do you know what? I need to actually set the bar.
My dad said to me, it's funny because I enjoyed school. I would say I was an okay student. I was a B, C grader, but still that was very much if I put my all into it, right? And my dad said to me, someone coming from Ghana, my background's from Ghana. He was born and raised in Ghana. He came to the UK. He actually did university in the UK. And even though I struggled at times with school, my dad said to me, if you can do it, your siblings will do it. And the other people who like look up to or admire you for whatever reason will think that they can do it as well. So do it. So when he said that to me, that made me think, okay, whatever I do in life, people are watching. Whether it's good or bad, people are always watching. So be mindful of what you're doing. Just make sure that it's always in the direction of doing good, because people are always watching, especially when it comes to what your capabilities are in life. So that, and we had that conversation. I'd probably say about 14, 15, I started to realize that, oh, okay, as much as my parents would love me to be, I'm actually not an A-star student, but I can still do this. Yeah. And once my dad said that you could do it, people will follow behind you, and it's good for you to be an example. That's when I realized, okay, I have to be mindful of the actions that I take in life.
Yeah, that's interesting that stuck with you from such an early age.
Yeah, right? Even now, I'm in my mid-30s, and that's something that I always think about. And it's funny because we have a platform where naturally there are eyes on you.
Thousands of eyes.
Yeah.
Even the ones that aren't following you, they're watching.
Yeah. And I think that has also stuck with me with the work that we do as well. Just, if people see good, they will do good, right? If people think that you're impactful, then they will possibly want to impact other people. And as a Christian, I believe that everyone has their individual purpose in life, whether that's from like your career or raising a family or whatever it is that God leads you to do. But every single human, their purpose is to give back. Their purpose is to help somebody else. And you can literally do that from just saying good morning to someone, or smiling at someone, or giving them a piece of information that they had no idea about, which is kind of how our platform started, where, in the property industry, there was a lot of information that we had gathered and researched and gained that a wider society didn't even know about. And that became our purpose. So anything that you do should be purposeful. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of pressure to put on a teenager to expect them to lead the pathway, not just for their siblings, but for people in general, it sounds like. So with that pressure, did he give you also the belief that he was giving you, he believed that you could do it, but then also encouraging you to believe in yourself that you could walk the path?
Yeah, my dad was brilliant. He believed that I could do anything. It was funny, when he passed away, I was scrolling through our messages, and what I found that he constantly repeated was, with persistence and prayer, you will do it. Just be persistent, be prayerful, and you can do it. Even from like my degrees, essays, I used to email him my essays to read through. And he'll be like, yeah, see, look, you're being persistent. You're having faith. When I started looking for my first job, and I was, when you come into the job market and you're naive, you just think you're going to go to university and a job is going to roll on your lap, or you're just going to get a placement year like that, and it doesn't happen. And I remember I'd be like, nothing is happening, nothing is coming. He'd be like, be persistent, be prayerful, be persistent, be prayerful, and you can do it. And all the messages that I was going through at the time he passed, like month on month, year on year, it was the same thing. So he definitely had that belief in me for sure. Yeah.
Nice. And Tayo, do you see that as well? Do you see that's translated into the relationship that you two have as well? The belief, the persistence, and
yeah, absolutely. I think that I definitely see it in Antoinette, and I think that it's interesting what she said about the fact that when she was young, she knew that she had to be like an example to other people. Because the first thing I thought in my head when she said that is that, yeah, like, especially as a child, like 13, 14, you're so impressionable. I remember like being young and I used to just come home with like bad habits. And I'm not talking about like when people are older and they'll come home and like smoking or anything like that. But like this is actually kind of funny, innit? Like there was a guy in my school, that used to, he might have had like, I don't know if he had like a disorder or anything, but he used to bite his knuckles. And I didn't have anything mentally that made me want to bite my knuckles. And his knuckles used to swell. But like I remember when I was younger, like obviously very young, I just started doing it. I remember one day I copied someone who had a speech impediment. And I just say that to say that like as younger, you're so impressionable that obviously with those people, it's not their decision. But if you're following someone like Antoinette who's chosen to be a good example, it's always good to have those good examples at such a young age. So I think Antoinette even saying that is something that we're definitely going to take from your dad and tell our children that even when you're 12, 13, 14, be a good example that people can follow, basically. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of alignment with us. Like my early days, I've got 2 siblings as well. I'm the middle, so you know the middle child is kind of like, you know, kind of like the odd one out. I've only got 2 brothers. And yeah, Nigerian household. My parents weren't born here, they came over from Nigeria. We lived in like kind of like central/south. Then we moved further out, so like Orchard Road, Catford, and then finally moved out to like the borders of London and Kent. Childhood memories, yeah, I had good childhood memories. Like very close to my brothers, but you know, like brothers, it's not like close. It's like you're close, innit? But it's not like you can't see it, if that makes sense. But we're very tight. Yeah, went to university. That's where I met Antoinette. So yeah, I think
on the first day, right?
On the first day, yeah, absolutely.
Were you studying the same thing?
Yeah.
Studying the same thing, yeah. I think I asked you a question or something like that, innit?
Yeah, so, you know, is it induction? Like the first like introduction lecture, we were both lost. And he asked me, are you on the economics course? And I was like, yeah. He's like, do you know where we're going? I was like, no. And then we figured it out together.
Yeah.
And then
Giovanni knows the game. I was lost.
Trust you, man.
I was lost, man. I knew where I was going.
Was it love at first sight?
no.
Nah, I definitely interest at first sight,
Yeah.
but not love at first. I don't like I mentioned. Like love is something that I believe builds up over a number of different elements in it, and we definitely got there. But I would never be love at first sight just on looks. I can't love looks, if that makes sense. She's beautiful, of course, but I always say that I fall for the inside first and the outside after. But the outside being fantastic is obviously a sweet deal.
And on that first day, like when you look back, do you sometimes just almost like pinch yourself to be like, that's crazy that you first met at uni and you're here now, you know, educating so many people around the world and stuff. So
it's a weird one. I'd say no, you know, because that's my reality. So it's kind of like, and I know for a lot of people, that's kind of like a dream, isn't it? But because I don't know anything else, it's kind of like, and I think there's a lot of things in life like that. It's just relative to what your reality is, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know what Antoinette thinks, but
I have those like pinch me moments. Just because, like what you said, I feel like that's a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I've had people say to me like, your life has gone in like a certain trajectory that is kind of like a fairy tale. You know, you go to uni, you meet your person, you get married, you have children, and sometimes it is a lot of people's like ideal situation to meet their husband at uni, and I did. Do you get what I mean? It was like, it's ironic that it was literally like the first person outside of my housemates that I was living with at the time that I met. So sometimes it's like, rah. And now like 14, 15 years later, we're here. So it's a bit like surreal, yeah. But at the same time, I do understand that that's just our reality. Yeah.
But it is definitely something that it's like an American movie.
It's like that.
No, I hear it. I definitely do hear that.
Yeah.
So you guys have had like your own failures in your own ways, and I'm sure you've had some together. Like you didn't pass your A-levels, but you still managed to go to uni.
Yeah.
There's been different things. So coming from this belief system and persistent and prayer, when you come to those failures, like not getting through, not passing your A-levels, how do you individually and together come or overcome them?
So individually, so if I go back to what I said at the beginning about struggling, and then did my A-levels, I think it was my history A-level that stopped me from getting into my 2 unis. And then it was, okay, do I go through clearing and just go to any university to do any subject, or do I take a gap year and try again? And that's where that persistence came from with my dad. It was like, you don't just accept anything. Try again. It didn't work. Try again. Go and study what you actually want to study. I loved maths. I did maths. Maths was the only thing that I was good at, that I got spot on. The rest I struggled at. I did writing subjects, but I'm a numbers person, so it was my writing subjects that brought my grades down. But that period was really tough for me because I really did feel like a failure. I saw all my best friends go to uni, go to top unis as well. And it was like, okay, I don't want to study something that is going to be forced on me. And I actually want to try again, because I have had that belief system that you can do it. I actually want to try again. So as much as it was difficult, I got through that by remembering that you can actually do anything. Sometimes you just need to knuckle down and do it. And I think together, Tayo's mindset is very much like, even with our kids, we don't use the language of this can't be done or this is impossible or I can't. Like our young girls, like Olivia, she's 4 and she'll be like, oh, I can't do this, Mum. No, you need to try again. And even with our journey in our business, within our careers, it's always been like, try again. Yeah. So that's, I think, the kind of mindset that we've had to push forward in everything that we've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think individually, one thing I didn't mention, you grow up in a Nigerian household, right? You might have heard it before, but you're kind of taught that you can do anything you want to. And if you can't do it, it makes you hyper aware that it's basically not your fault, but it's kind of like, if you wanted to do it, you didn't try hard enough, basically. So I'll be the first to admit, and I know that academically I did okay, like GCSEs, two A's, quite a few B's and then a couple of C's. But I know that naturally I was quite smart. So I know that I underachieved in that. Even with going to university, like I always used to describe, going to university was kind of bad decision making as well. So no one highlights how much harder sixth form is than GCSE. It's like sixth form is close in difficulty to university. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So I did biology, chemistry, business and maths. So 3 out of 4 were really, really hard. Based on that, I just about got into uni. I got into uni through clearing. I always describe it as like, it felt like the doors were shutting. You know, like on the train and the bus, you just got through, like your bag even might have been stuck. That's how I described going into university, basically. But yeah, got into uni, fortunately, but you learn from these things, innit? I think that one big lesson I learned, and Antoinette hears me talk about all the time, from a quote unquote failure. And I really understand that these quote unquote failures are part of life. I always think glass half full. I always give the example that when I was in university studying economics, I wanted to work in a big name bank, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs. That's what I wanted to do. Applied for grad scheme roles. No one was having it. I send an email, I send an application. With personal statements, there's applications take like 40 minutes. Within 3 minutes, they've emailed back saying you didn't get it. It's like, I don't even know what's going on there. So applied for loads, didn't get anything. Finally came out of university, and one of my friends helped me get a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a management trainee or something like that. And enterprise work, you hard, man. It's like 8 till 6, but you really got to pull up at 7, and you're really working until the client is done, innit? Do you get what I'm trying to say? And in the winter, London's really, really dark as well.
Yeah.
And like sometimes for corporate clients, you've got to wash the cars yourself. And bear in mind, you're wearing a suit in the dark and it's raining. So I always give the example that enterprise, like, you don't know how hard it is. Like, I'm washing car in the rain in a suit. Someone that went uni, Do you get what I'm trying to say? But sometimes, sometimes the graft is what builds you. And at that time, one might think that, okay, cool, I failed because I didn't go JP Morgan. And it's funny because I actually ended up working in JP Morgan at some point in life. But that taught me a lesson that's probably more valuable than working at JP Morgan, because I remember when I finally left there, I got a retail job just as a personal banker in Santander. And I was thinking, okay, this is calm, innit? It's not where I want to be, but it's calm, innit? And I used to work with there was like a lot of Eastern European guys that I used to work with. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, so you're going to the bank? I was like, that's sick. I was like, yeah, it's calm. And he was like, what, you get to sit down? Like, you get a seat all day? And like in a room, like there's a roof over your head, like, you get like a desk. I was thinking like, yeah, you're right. It's like, and if it's warm, you just put the heat. If it's cold, you just put the heating on. If it's, I was like, yeah, no, it's true. And like, don't get me wrong, yeah, 'cause where we are now, innit, that sounds crazy, innit? But back then, those little things, it just lets you have gratitude, if that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like things could be worse. And now whenever anything happens, Antoinette knows, I'm always like, I call it glass half full.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're struggling to get a promotion, it's like, but you have a job, innit? Like, give thanks that you have a job. Or if you're struggling to get some business over the line, thank God you had an idea that you could even create a business. There's some people out there that got business acumen, but they have nothing to apply it to. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Yeah. So thank goodness you've got something that you can do that.
It's so true. And I had one of those moments where you kind of just remember where you've come from as well. Kind of like, so in Dubai we have this app called InstaShop. I don't know if you're aware of it.
Yeah,
so you can just order things in convenience. This makes life so easy. And like, I could be at home and be like, I've got no bottled water. Let me order some, or I need, I don't know, toilet paper or like chocolate.
Even pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, anything from the pharmacy and stuff. Wow. And then the other day, like I before this, I did this gym competition on Saturday, and I wanted to get some deep heat. And I looked on the thing and said, okay, 10 minutes. So I ordered it, and it got to like 11 minutes, and it hadn't arrived yet. And so I'm now ready to like write my 1-star review to the company and stuff. And then I deeped it, and I was like, do you know what? Like when I was younger, like I used to go to Tesco with my mum or whatever, and we used to walk 25 minutes with all the carrier bags and stuff. And it's like that just kind of in that moment just like humbled me, kind of, Yeah. So I hear you on that one in terms of the seat in the office and stuff. And So okay, so you what happened after uni? So you both studied economics at uni, and then what was where did you guys go after that?
So I got a job at a small media publishing company. I started there as a assistant management accountant, and then I was there for about 2 years, two and a bit years. Started doing my professional accounting exams. Then I went over to Kurt Geiger as a management accountant there. I looked after the concessions, Harrods and Selfridges. Then I went over to The Economist. And then I had 2 babies in between that time. And then I went to a TV production company. That's where I am now. Yep.
Yeah. I think for me, I, as mentioned, went to Enterprise. I didn't stay in jobs for like longer than 12 months. So I did Enterprise, then I did Santander, then I worked at a mortgage brokerage, then I went to Deloitte, then I went to HSBC, then I went to JP Morgan, then I went to Bank of America, then I left to become a television presenter. Started investing in property alongside it. So that was at Santander was when I got my first job, basically. After Santander, I think this is key for people to kind of like hear as well, because there's something that we always say off the back of this. After Santander, when I became a mortgage broker, that's when property investment for the both of us started ramping up a lot. And that's when around the times we decided to make the platform Brickz with Tipz.
So you were investing before you was a mortgage broker?
Yes.
So what?
So not investing as such. I'd bought my first home before I actually became a mortgage broker.
What made you want to buy your first home? Just because like that's what we do in life, or you were looking at it as an investment?
So this is it. We always say in the UK, like buying a home is kind of like a pre-installed chip.
Yeah.
In England,
Okay.
it's go school, go college, go uni, find a partner, buy a house, and then you look around and say, "Oh, I've completed it. Now what?"
Yeah.
But it's because of that why we advise everyone to buy a home who is in the UK, because now there's as we mentioned, it means that there's pre-installed demand.
Yes.
If you are on the ladder. That means everybody else that's coming behind you that hasn't bought a home yet also has that pre-installed, I need to buy it. It's just something that you do. It's like, why is there that urge in the UK to buy a home? And that's why we think it's important for people to do, because there's always that demand of people behind you that are going to want to do the same. And especially when you're on an island, it's a lot different to Dubai, right? Dubai's got a lot of supply to go. Like soon enough, people are going to be willing or happy to live 50 minutes, an hour from downtown Dubai.
Yeah.
It's going to get there. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
It's getting there.
It's
already,
getting there. Do you get what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say? Whereas the UK, it's an island. Like people live in London, people work in London, they live in Southampton. They're
Yep.
comfy with it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? And
Yeah.
for those of you that aren't familiar with that, drive-wise, that's like 2 hours. Two and a
People
bit.
commute on a train
On the
there and back.
train.
Train
Yeah.
train
Do you
there and
think
back.
COVID helped that as well in terms of the lockdown and then the going back to office spaces and, you know?
COVID proved something, I'd say. So we often mention that not only what we mentioned, but the UK is very dependent. The UK economy is very dependent on property. So I always give the example that COVID, March 2020, everything shut down. No going out, no funerals, no weddings. But within 4 weeks, you're allowed to go on house viewings. You get what I'm trying to say? And these are the sort of things that we try and tell people with property, that you're kind of protected to a degree. They're always going to look after it because it's so linked to the economy. Even after COVID, it's like, okay, cool, mortgage holidays. You don't have to pay your... No consequences. We're going to you don't have to pay your mortgage payments for a month or whatever it is, or 3 months or whatever it was.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like they
Stamp
look
duty
after it because
holiday.
it's so linked to the economy. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So after you bought your first property, what made you then be like, there's a business here?
It wasn't so much a business initially. It was, okay, we can do... So Tayo actually bought the first one by himself. And then I was like, I want to do it.
I want one too.
I want one too. So then we bought the second one together. And then the opportunity just presented itself to buy the third one. And then after we got married, it was, okay, I want a better family home. So then the fourth one we bought.
Sorry, just to be clear, did you own all of these at the same time?
Yes.
All four of them? So
So
the
we never
first...
sold. So we never sold a property.
We don't believe in
basically.
selling. Yeah.
Okay, So you assets, and then they're just increasing in value as time.
So when you bought the first one, were you living in it or did
So
you...
when I bought the first one, I was living in it. And it's an interesting question that you ask, because you learn things as you go along in life as well. So when I was in university, living with 4 other people, I always used to ask the landlord, like, so how much you buy this house for? Oh, what's the mortgage on this? Because I know how much we're paying. You get what I'm trying to say? So kind of took some lessons from that. So when I came out of university, not long after I bought my first home, I was house sharing in university anyway. So living with my family at home. So what I could have done is lived in the 3-bed home that I bought and not shared with anyone. Had my space to myself and enjoyed my space. But I'm someone who's very forward thinking, and I believe there's a season for everything. And one thing I did know is that eventually, if I did get married and have a family, there's no renting out a room tax-free when you've got a family, innit? So I'm like, look, I'm used to house sharing at the moment. Let me take this opportunity to rent out 2 rooms. So rented out 1 room. That 1 room that I rented paid for the mortgage flat out. Yeah. And then the second room was a bit on top. And I was able to save that to start going towards the other property that I bought with Antoinette, because I didn't have no bread. Antoinette was the one who had the bread. I had to rustle something up from the first one.
So you were already forward thinking. You were like, right, okay, you just saved money for a deposit and then used rent money to pay the mortgage.
Exactly that. And there's more that comes out of it as well. I think that the fact that I was a mortgage broker as well, that's where the education piece comes out of it. So you start to understand refinancing.
Yeah.
So when a property goes up in value, and the fact that you're paying your mortgage down, you're able to refinance the property and pull some more money out of it, which we then use towards the purchase as well.
Yeah.
So I think things like that are super, super important. And that's kind of why we was like, do you know what? It's not super earnings that's allowing us to do this. It's education.
The knowledge.
And strategy, which is something that we've been talking about a lot recently.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about strategy before, but amongst everything, it's super, super important in anything that you do. If we forget property for a minute, because one thing that we always say is that property is kind of like our expertise, but we're not necessarily property heads. Like because we do a lot of speaking engagements now, and one thing that we love to speak about to young people is just how to be a version of you, how to be more confident, and so on and so forth. But anyways, I digress. I say all of that to say that strategy is so important. Like, not only thinking for the next 12 months, think for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Is what I'm doing right now going to get me to where I want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay, if not, how do I start changing that from today?
Is this how you've both always thought?
Admittedly, for me, no. I think it's something that you think about more as you get older, as you realize what you want out of life, and especially when you have children as well. So it's now my life is set in a way where everything that I do, I need to think about how that's going to impact us and my children and my children's future. Especially because things change all the time. And we saw it with our business in COVID, things change rapidly, right? So even with the property market, for example, within the last 18 months where COVID came in and just disrupted the whole market, interest rates changed 14 times. So that meant the properties that we were letting out, people were being furloughed, our mortgages went up, we had to strategize our portfolio and our plans and our business to make sure that we were able to look after it. So you have things that happen to you that make you think, okay, I can't just be thinking about today or tomorrow. We need long term because we don't know what can happen in the future. But once you have that mindset, you're able to just grasp things a bit quicker, faster, and find solutions for problems that can arise. And that's something that I learned, I would say, within the last 5 years, if I'm being honest. I think you've always been forward thinking. I think you've always been like that. I've always known you to be like that.
I wouldn't say I was always forward thinking, but I definitely think that it's matured a lot as as time went on as well. So
There's forward thinking and there's strategy to get to the forward
Yeah.
this is
thinking.
it. And I think that I always talk to people about learning about yourself as well, which is super important. And I learned a lot more about myself in the last 7 years. I give the example that when I was at 23, 24, people used to ask what my passion was, and I used to be like, my passion is to just make more money, man. And when you're like that, you have no compass, you have no direction that you're going in. I often tell people that Forex, drop shipping, all of these things, I've done it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I've tried it. Sometimes you just got to pay attention, got to take stock and pay attention. And I think that both Antoinette and I aligned in that we realized that our passion is actually helping people.
Yeah.
That's what we do when we're busy. That's what we do when we're not feeling well.
Yeah.
That's what we do when no one's looking. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And Brickz with Tipz is aligned in that that's where passion meets expertise.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how Antoinette feels, but I've only come out of it saying it recently. I don't necessarily have a passion for property, and I understand property. I have a passion for helping people. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where Brickz with Tipz aligns, basically.
Yeah.
Because you could get that same passion out of me if I know someone who works in a pharmaceuticals company and I want to connect you with them because you're a pharmaceuticals graduate.
Yeah.
You'll see that same passion.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that comes with time and knowing yourself. But yeah, I think that the fine-tuning the strategy only came, it got shored up in my latter 20s, basically, where it's kind of okay, what does this year look like? What does this year look like?
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right, because I did have mini goals when I was at 21. I was like, okay, I want to this
You've
by
always
this,
been
or
goal
do
driven.
this by this. Yeah. What I do is I do something that's quite interesting. I set a goal that is, if the goal seems achievable in your head, then the goal isn't big enough.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's got to be something that's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So you can break the ceiling. And the great, it's bare cheesy, but you know that thing that they say, like, shoot for the stars, you'll end up with the moon or whatever, whatever it is. But it's that exact concept. Like, if you aim for, I don't want to use money in it, but if you aim for 40 degrees Celsius, if you didn't aim for 40 degrees Celsius, you might only end up at 15. But because you aim for 40, you get to 37.
Yeah. It's like,
doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
So you aim for something that's like quite ridiculous, basically.
Yeah.
And then hopefully
It's great to have goals, and I think everyone needs to have goals, and I think that's a really good example. But in terms of getting to know yourself, I think there's a lot of humans in the world that always like wanting to get to know themselves better because, like you said, it helps you to progress in life.
Absolutely.
But what is it? Can you give exact examples of what you guys do, maybe for yourselves or to help each other to understand yourselves better?
It's weird. I don't know how to put it, and I'd love to be able to give an exact example, but I would say pay attention to patterns.
Like your own patterns of behavior.
Your own patterns of behavior. Pay attention to what you're happy without specific external factors. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So like things like a holiday or that have like extra bits in it, it's very hard to tell what's actually making you happy. But on like a normal day, pay attention to the things that make you happy. Like, is it a compliment, or is it being around people that smile a lot, or is it, these kind of things basically. But I think the key thing is just paying attention to what makes your mood swing and stuff like that. Or even like one thing I've noticed in the last two years is that no sleep affects me massively. Like it can take me 3 days to get back on track from not having good sleep, basically. I still mess myself up with it. But like stuff like that is just knowing yourself as well and being able to, you got to just be intentional about being the best version of you as possible. And you'll just be hyper aware of everything that you do, everything that you listen to, everything that you consume, and everyone that you're around as well. Yeah. I was going to get into community before, because back to when I was a mortgage broker, and this doesn't directly answer the question, but I always say that one thing that helped us understand that we can use Brickz with Tipz to impact our community and help people buy property is that we were able to do a lot of the fact because when I'm working as a mortgage broker, it's my job to help people get approved for a mortgage on a regular basis. I'm seeing so many people, the volume and the proximity that I am to that business or to property in itself is so close now, it's massively attainable. A simple example is that if you looked at a pool of 200 people, right? Maybe like 10 of them own a property in the UK, yeah? But if you looked at a pool of 200 real estate agents, it'd be a much higher percentage. Why? Because they're involved in it every single day. It's not because of the earnings. It's just because of what they know.
Yeah.
So I always say to people that, like, I always love to give the football example that if I grew up with like Marcus Rashford and all of these footballers, yeah, I'd still be worse than them at football. But to the average person, Giovanni, if I come kick ball with you, I'm going to make you look.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you look. Watched it. And that's just because of who I grew up with, who I was around. So people really need to understand how much who you are
Product
around.
of your environment.
Yeah.
Massively.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned you mentioned in terms of like the community side of things, and you being like having that proximity to the information and stuff. And so like now that you've got that knowledge, what sort of things do you do to kind of help? How do you help people? Like how do you reach people to help them and to give that knowledge to them and stuff?
It's interesting because our platform started because, just to give one example, Ty will come pick me up from the station. He's on the phone, talk about property. We'll go out, someone's called him, asked him a question. We'll do this, he's on the phone talking about it. And within our community, our own personal community, so our immediate friends and family, we're very transparent. Even when it came to what we were earning, everything, we're very, very transparent. So it was, okay, now that we've been able to tell people we've been able to buy a house without having the bank of mum and dad or earning a crazy salary, our friends and family have been able to do it off the back of what we've just told them or understanding our journey. So imagine, and before we were able to give them that information, they had no idea. It was, how are you able to do this? So imagine if we're able to tap into a wider community of people that look like him and I, earn average salaries, who don't have the bank of mum and dad, what will they be able to achieve if they want to get onto the property ladder? So it just started with jargon busting, right? Myth busting. Especially with the media, it will be, oh, you can't do this unless you're earning this, or, you know, you can't get a mortgage if you've got bad credit. All these things are not true. So a lot of people will say that they don't want to buy a house because they think they can't do it based on off the information that they have, which may be false, or information that they don't have. So putting like 60-second videos on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, having WhatsApp platforms, and then that information then goes to their wider community, and then it just expands. It's like a domino effect, right? Yeah. So people are then able to know that they can access this information and then make the right decisions for them.
What would you guys say someone came to you now and were like, I've got a decent paid job, but my credit is bad.
Yeah.
How can I get on the property ladder?
First of all, how bad is your credit? Because having bad credit just means that your pool is not as big as someone who has good credit. So, and that information, go to a broker straight away. And that's another thing, that there's a misconception of who you should speak to in the process. We always say, go straight to a broker who will be able to give you more details. They'll be able to give you the accessibility to the people who would lend to you on a certain credit number. And if you have a good earnings, good paid job, you earn a decent amount through your self-employment, and you've got a deposit, you'll be able to get a mortgage. And the broker will tell you exactly who will lend to you.
Okay. It's sometimes as simple as exactly what Antoinette said, but sometimes it's as simple as a broker, especially an experienced one, but be like, okay, cool. See this paycheck. I see you got CCJ 4 years ago. I placed someone with a mortgage, like same profile as you 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're going to look at this later. It can be as simple as that it's their job to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that one thing that people just need to do sometimes is literally just leverage the professionals around you as well.
Yeah.
So,
That's a good point. Actually utilising the people within your community or the greater community rather than thinking you can do everything on your own.
Exactly. Yeah. That's another misconception as well, that you can just go through the process alone. And we've also got a sub-platform that we created from Brickz with Tipz called the Home Buyers Club, where it's a community of people who want to purchase a house or want to go into property investment. And we leverage the people that we know. So solicitors, brokers who will come speak to people within the community. We've also been able to work with Barclays, who've helped us with the platform as well, just to give them the information and have that community of people where actually, I didn't know this, but you've been able to help me with that. You've just completed the process, so you're able to give me tips. You're in the process. Oh, you've just viewed this property in the same area that I want to view this property in. Oh, we may have a similar background. You're a teacher, I'm a teacher. So our earning power is similar. And you find that people who go on the same or similar journey as you, you're able to offload and bounce ideas and information, which just helps the process become a bit more smoother, because it is a complicated process. It can be a complicated process rather, and it can be quite daunting. Like you'd find that people would start their purchasing process and then drop out. And sometimes that's just because the lack of support or lack of information. So that's something that we've built to make sure that people can go from A to Z in the process and complete and get onto the property ladder as well. And one thing, going back to one of your earlier questions, why property? For me personally, especially as a economics graduate, if you look at the trajectory of the property market over the last 100 years in the UK, anyone who has some sort of wealth has property in their portfolio. Land isn't grown. We can't grow land. That's one thing that we can't. They can say that they are going to put up 1 million houses. Every government have said it. They want to put up flats. They want to put out houses. Eventually, land is going to run out. So what does that mean? Demand is always going to increase. Supply will never increase as fast as demand, because no matter whether you are a renter or a buyer, everyone's going to need a roof over their heads, right? So as well as it being a personal goal, as a whole, property is where you will find wealth, generational wealth. And as parents, that's something that we want to provide for our children. We don't want our children to have a struggle story, which sometimes a lot of people in our culture, I don't know why, but it's like they want to bounce off the fact that, oh, I came from this, I came from that. I actually want my children to come from some sort of wealth. I want them to come from a good start. And we felt like property was going to be able to give them that good start in life. So that's one of the reasons why we went into it.
It's interesting you say that, because a question I was actually going to ask you is, I feel like a lot of people, there's almost like a myth that the heyday of property is long gone, and it's the generation above us that benefited from it, etc. So what would you say to that?
The generation, so if you say that the generation above us are the ones that benefited from that, people were saying that to those people at the time as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we always say about property is that the best time to get into property was yesterday. Everybody thinks like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally it. Like, we got in 10 years ago, and people that are getting in today feel like they were late. We felt like we were late. The house that we bought was double the price that the previous vendors bought it for. Today, for us, it's double what we bought it for.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it'll continue going that way. I strongly believe that, because property performs well globally. Like Antoinette said, the biggest investors will have a real estate element of their portfolio. And even when you go to like cities like New York, Toronto, property prices are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like every single property is in the millions there.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? So there's, even for the Dubai real estate space and the UK real estate space, it's definitely heading in that direction. And I think that so long as you're buying correctly, because I think that one thing that is true is that before, in the older generations, they could buy a property anywhere and benefit from it. It's not like that anymore. Few fundamentals that you need to follow. I think that some people overcomplicate the fundamentals. It's just a case of spotting trends and spotting what people look for. But once you got that right,
Is that the fundamentals?
I think that's so. I'd say that the fundamentals are. We like to simplify it as buy for yourself and the next buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So we could apply it to the Dubai real estate market. Like, you want to think about schools, because people will actually move house for schools. These are real things that you just need to think about.
Yeah.
Or transport links, like the roads are busy. So I'm going to talk about the Dubai market, so I can just show how it can be translated. The roads are busy in Dubai in rush hour. So if they're building new train lines and there's apartments near new train lines, that's going to help massively. It's going to allow people to move to cheaper properties, but still have a good commute time. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So all of this 50-minute drive stuff, if it can be reduced to 15 minutes via train, look where the new train lines are being built.
Yep.
Or if we're thinking trends, what else is being built? They're closing down DXB Airport, making a new airport. That's going to be the new hub. Not only is that going to be the new hub, but the developers already know that as well.
Yep.
Public spending already know that. So maybe any new water parks and theme parks that they're building, they're already thinking about putting it in these places, because that's where the new airport's going to be. A new airport it's going to be the main airport. So that's super, super important for the country itself. They're going to make sure the infrastructure around it and the attractions around it are amazing. Or we look at stuff like
The new casino.
Something like that. Like, okay, what are we talking about? We talk about battling Vegas. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So if there's developments near that and you can get close enough to that, it's kind of like, all we need to do is kind of compare. What does an Airbnb look like near Vegas, if there even is one? There's no Airbnb. There's not really any Airbnb near Vegas, because flipping MGM Grand took all the land. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But in this scenario, there might actually be scope for that. So now you get to tussle with like the land that some hotels would have. So I just think that we don't think about it and think about yourself, but also what the next buyer or the next end user might want.
Yeah.
You can kind of spot these trends. Sometimes we get blindsided by price and not value.
Yeah.
And that goes for life as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes we focus on price and not value. So you just got to go for the value sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a very good saying. Price is not value, or look at value, not price.
Mm.
I think a lot of people, especially in the UK, they look at their property, like we said, the rat race, you have to buy a property, and they look at buying a property as their end goal, and that's their investment, but they're also planning to live in this house. So what is your thoughts on that kind of mindset, where it's like, I must buy a house and I must live in it, and this is now my investment?
I'm for it. I'll tell you why. The reality is, right? So this is what I say. Well, I went online once and I said that if you're not a high earner and you don't have any investments, you're not investing in stocks and shares, you're not got anything like that, then you need to buy a home.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's just to have somewhere to live in retirement. Maybe that's just the minimum of it. If anything, it keeps up with inflation.
Yeah.
Because the chances are if you buy that house in your 30s, by the time you're 65, probably would have doubled. If you've paid off your mortgage by then, it's a good chunk of money. For many people, it's their only ever investment. So the reason why I say that I'm fine with that mindset is that for people that are like entrepreneurs and like they're ready to get at it, they won't get it. And I agree with them for not getting it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because you're actually out there. But the truth is, only 1 in 20 people are like that. So when you're talking to the masses, like most of you are never going to invest in any stocks and shares. The numbers are there, unfortunately. Most of you are never going to run a business. You're going to work a job. And especially in the UK where wages are relatively low, you need to buy a home.
Yeah.
If you're not an incredibly high earner or aren't investing elsewhere or don't have designs on building a business, you need to buy a first home. If that's your only investment, let that be that, basically. But that's my...
I agree. Look, let's keep it about wages in the UK are not cutting it compared to the rate of inflation, compared to food prices, fuel prices. It's you can't just have, in my opinion, one form of security, that being your 9 to 5. And like Tayo said, the figures are there. There's so many initiatives, especially around women, trying to get women into investing, into stocks and shares, into buying businesses, starting up businesses, because women don't do it, especially BAME women. We don't do it. So because we are not doing that, and because it's just an embedded chip that came from somewhere to be like, okay, buy a house, buy it. Pensions now, there's even this whole conflict about pensions. We don't even know what our pensions are going to look like when we're ready to retire. Some of us might not even be here for retirement age the way they keep on increasing the age. Your home, for me, is a guaranteed security in looking after yourself, looking after your children. So that's something that we definitely 100% advocate for.
And then the final thing is as well is that you would have done something. So if your mindset does change, it's like, hey, I want to open a business. I need £30,000 to open a business.
Got it.
If you're on double the average salary in the UK, which is £60,000 a year, even if you live in Kent or Essex, you would in most cases you will struggle to save £30,000. But hey, if you've owned a home for 5 years, the chances are you can refinance £30,000 out of your property. Mortgage payments go up a bit, but at least you can use that to, well, in actual terms, you can't actually refinance to start a business. But you get what I'm saying, basically.
Yeah.
You've got somewhere you can pull money from, basically.
Definitely. So, even with our example, we had two daughters back to back, which allowed me to take almost 2 years off work. And I was able to do that because of property. We didn't have that security. Maternity leave in the UK, if you're lucky, if you've got a good company, then you can get at least 6 months off. That's if you're lucky. But statutory, 3 months. I'm not...
Here it's 45 days.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's crazy here. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Wow.
And that's just the lady, right? The mother.
The man might get 5 days off.
Yeah.
Not
maybe.
5.
The 1 week.
Because
Wow.
in the UK, you can share it now, right? Can't you?
Yeah, you
Sometimes,
can
yeah, you
share.
can share,
I think
yeah,
the
yeah.
standard paternity is 2 weeks. And then the standard is 3 months for the mum, which I feel like after 3 months, I just feel like I just got out of hospital. So, that's something that for me personally, I'm grateful that I had, because I got to A, have 2 children and B, raise them in their early years. And that was from our security from property, so it gives you options.
Yeah,
And I feel
absolutely.
like in life, you need options.
And just to talk on something that Antoinette mentioned options, this is where it comes into our content as well, because you've got to tweak your delivery to who you're speaking to as well. So it's kind of like one thing that we do on Instagram, we kind of call it a Trojan horse, right? Because a lot of our content is actually entertaining first and then educational. And that's because we want to cast the net on the people that wouldn't typically listen to this kind of message. and get them thinking about maybe I should be doing this or maybe I should be doing that. Or sometimes when we do a lot of charity work, speaking to younger generations, and a lot of them are like, especially when they see people their age making like millions off like TikTok and stuff like that, it's kind of like you got to keep their attention, innit? And sometimes I'll say to them like, look, my last job, the last job I worked, should I say, I was earning maybe about £65,000 a year, but I was a property investor alongside it. So we had a portfolio in the multi-millions simultaneously. I was working that job. And I was saying that, you know what, if I didn't buy that first property years before that 65k job as well, I wouldn't have the wealth that I had now in it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And I often say to them that like, that property is basically doubled now. I could sell the property today and buy like a supercar. I wouldn't do that, but it puts things into perspective, because even if I worked that 65k job for 10 years, I wouldn't be able to buy the supercar. But I bought the house on a salary that was less than half of that salary. Is what I'm saying making sense?
Yeah.
And because of property and how it's gone up in value and so on and so forth, it's now grown into something much bigger. So it's kind of like, it's the fundamentals of investing, right? We always explain it as that, like when you invest, it's like you buy a little employee that's going to work forever.
Yeah.
Like literally forever. Like imagine that. Just someone working for you forever. You spent the money, you spend £100, you got someone that's going to make you £1 a week forever. No matter what you're doing, no matter what country you're in, no matter if you're not feeling well, no matter if your phone battery's dead, your laptop. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like when we speak to the young people about it, like it excites the idea of it excites them. And it's important to get those messages in early, basically, so people can understand the fundamentals of it.
What would you say to people that are, maybe they don't have the capital, they don't have the savings and stuff, because
They're struggling.
There's different like ways now, things are popping up like Airbnb or rent to rent, etc. Like, so what would you say to people without savings? And
yeah, absolutely. Like in property, like it goes back to what we teach with Brickz with Tipz. Like education can be as valuable as money in this game. Even before we even go to rent, let's say you've got no capital. If you've got time to put in, you can put in the work. You can find deals basically and sell them on to investors. Let's say you were an avid like property investor that was hungry for any deals going. And then I was someone who was just hitting the phones and I found a distressed landlord and I convinced the distressed landlord to sell 20k or less percentage, 10% below market value. If you're buying up everything, you'll take on that deal and you'll pay me for it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So you can actually do that. They call it deal sourcing, but it can be called a number of things across the world, depending on what it is, basically. Or even...
So, sorry, you find the deals and then you get paid an amount because you found a deal for somebody else.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
So it's a way to make extra income. If you're earning minimum wage, not really earning much money, and then it gets you the education within the property
You know the
system
market.
whilst getting paid. So then you earn your money
Exactly.
and then invest.
Exactly. Because
It's
you
like
would have done
commission
That is
almost, like.
smart.
Exactly.
Spot on.
So by the
Spot on.
time you're ready to buy, you will know different markets, you will know different areas, you will know what's hot, what's not, where to buy. You know, you'd know
And how to get the best deal.
How to get the best deal, whether certain schools are popping up. So whether you want to buy for yourself at a family home or whether you want to buy it for an investment property, you'll know where all the hotspots are.
So is it one of them ones where like, it's like how you use your free time, right? Are you coming home and watching EastEnders, or are you looking into the property market to get a little side hustle?
You know what I'm saying? They say work in your 9 to 5, then come home and work on your 5 to 9.
Yeah.
If you want to make a difference.
Yeah.
And it can be applied in so many different variations. Like it might be a case where, for example, there might be a broker that gets 5% commission for any buyers he brings to the table. You say to him, look, if I bring you a buyer, can I grab 2%? And he needs to sell off-plan units. So whatever it may be, basically, you just work on getting buyers effectively, going to networking events, meeting people. Now you're saying that I've got off-plan developments. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But really you're connecting with my man, but you're also building your network and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time just existing in the space can help. If you've got a little bit of capital, you can do Airbnb. Now Airbnb, we do Airbnb in the UK. We do it on properties that we own, but we also have a rent-to-rent portfolio as well. And you can definitely do that in the UK with about £10,000. Probably need a little bit more in Dubai, because in Dubai, it's like rents are 1 check, 2 checks. And then on top of that, the furnishing, because of how Dubai is, the furnishing is a relatively higher standard as well.
Yeah.
And you just have to look at hotels to see that, right? Look at the top hotels in London. probably the same, could be the same price as the ones in Dubai, but the standard in furnishing is quite different, basically. Yeah. So, a bit more capital required in Dubai, but still an opportunity there. And I know a lot of people are killing it here as well.
What sort of challenges, or not even challenges, but how do you navigate, running Brickz with Tipz together as like, husband and wife, and then, making time to ensure that, you're still investing in your personal marriage as well, and then also you're raising a family as well. Like, how do you kind of manage all of that?
And you have big external families as well.
Yeah.
You both have siblings and I'm sure cousins and all of this other thing.
It's hard. It's hard, man. I think in practice we already know what it is like. A lot of the time, like we're so fortunate enough to have family around us. Like my mum helps out a lot. Antoinette's mum helps out a lot.
Yeah.
Antoinette's sister helps out a lot. Both of my brothers help out a lot. But those chips are typically used for us to go work together.
Yeah.
Not for like date nights and stuff like that. So it's like if we've both got a speaking engagement, or we've got an event to go to, or we got this to go to, and we're fortunate, and it's not even to complain because we're blessed and fortunate enough to be called for a lot of speaking engagements as well, different companies and organizations and so on and so forth, basically. But that in itself is a challenge. But I think that for me and probably Antoinette as well, I'm just of the mindset that, like, do you know what? There's purpose in what we do.
Yeah.
We are blessed in other ways. Like, we sacrifice that, but our blessings come in other ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. And communication as well. I think that has to be a key driver. And I think sometimes it's a cliche thing to say in relationships, but it's so important, especially with Ty's schedule. So if he's out 2 days, 3 days, and he's got to go and film, and I've got to manage all the kids and stuff like that, I have to clearly communicate my needs. So whether that's, he'll be like, oh, don't worry, my brother will sort this out, or he'll help do this. It's very important to communicate, and then also setting time aside. So we get quite busy during October, Black History Month. That's where a lot of, I would say, my speaking engagement work comes from. Black History Month, and then in March, International Women's Day / month. So we're quite intentional with booking a holiday, for example, at the end of October or November. So because we know that we're going to be back to back, let's put some time aside where it's not work, it's not kids, it'll be us two, or sometimes we'll take the kids. So putting those things in place. So, but it's tough. Like, one of my most frequent questions is, and how do you juggle all these things? And honestly, it's by the grace of God, because it's literally just day by day. But at the same time, extremely grateful for what we do as well. Yeah.
And a shared calendar helps a lot as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I don't know how we survived like that. It's not in the diary.
Yeah.
Did you put it in the diary?
Have you put it in the diary? Or this will come
in the
up.
diary, it's like catastrophe.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
If it's not in the diary, it's not happening.
It's not
That's
happening.
what they say, innit?
Yeah.
That's what they say. Yeah. But yeah, I'll also go on to say, like, credit to Antoinette as well, like, massively, especially in the early days of television, like, because I could be out for like a week and a half, like 2 weeks. And communication is key, because she would say what her struggles in that week would be. Whereas I could have a situation where she's just vexed for a week. And I've had a long week in flipping the corner, like northeast England or something. I come back and she's vexed when I come back as well with it. But I think that communication is like saying, oh, it might be tricky on this day. It allows, because I'm like naturally a problem solver, it allows me to say, right, cool, let me see if I can do blah, 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 and get someone to blah, blah, blah. So yeah.
A lot of tips have been shared.
Yeah.
In terms of business, in terms of investing in property, and just personal life, and how you can combine all three to support yourself to grow. So thank you so much. But I have to always ask, is there any extra tips that you haven't been able to put out there that you want to?
That gem, that gem that
You
people are
can't
gonna be
live
like,
without.
Yeah, that moment that people are like, yeah, well, this is golden.
Oh.
I've got one that I've been feeling a lot, and I think it goes back to what you mentioned about finding about yourself, innit? Like, one of the key steps to finding out about yourself is understand that no one can be you better than you. And when you understand that, and you accept yourself for yourself, or don't have to pretend to be anyone else, you step with like some confidence as well, because there is value in who you are, basically. Your value shouldn't be attached to what you have or what you do or status or who you know. Like, when you get to a place where you understand your value is in just being you, it will help you in like work and whatever you do basically, because when someone calls you to do something, there's no pressure because they've just seen you be you.
Yeah.
So they must be calling you for that. They're not calling you because they saw you with my man or that. They're not calling you because they saw you driving this. Like they didn't know me for me. So there's no pressure because I'm just gonna go be myself. I wasn't pretending to be anyone for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So this is what you've ordered. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like one of the things that we've been saying a lot of our speaking engagements with young people, like, and get them out of the mindset of, especially in this popcorn society we live with, like, don't attach your value to anything. Just be you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. We have a tradition, an exit tradition on our podcast where we ask you if you could implement one rule in the world for everyone to follow, what would it be and why? So I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll go first. Yeah. I think I said this at the beginning. Serve other people. Serve other people. It's funny because I actually relate it back to what we were taught in marriage counselling, right?
Yeah.
So when we were going through marriage counselling, I think this was about 7 years ago now, our pastor said, make sure that you do what you need to be doing irrespective of what he's doing, right? So if he's doing something wrong, don't retaliate and do the wrong things as well. Make sure that you're always doing the right thing. Make sure you're always serving the home, because you realize that he'll clock on that he shouldn't be doing wrong, and then he'll start to do good. And then your energy will shift, and then it's like you're back to what you should be doing because you've decided to continue to serve him. Because you've decided to continue to serve him, he now wants to serve you. And that's something that I think every human being should do. We're not on this earth for ourselves. If we were, it wouldn't work. And it doesn't work, which is, we have, as human beings, we have a lot of selfish tendencies, which is why there's catastrophe in the world, right? If we all decided to do good and serve the other person, that person will want to serve the next person, and that person will want to serve the next person. Then there's a positive domino effect. And I feel like if we all lived like that, the world, not to sound cliche, but the world will just be such a better place to live in, because we're all always thinking about the other person. And I feel like that's how everyone should live their life.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah.
For the record, I do what? It's just an example.
Yeah, that was an example. He does. He do.
That was a good one, man. You kind of got me. So what do I say? One rule that everybody should follow. I think a rule that everybody should follow is that they should not judge a book by its cover. Let's say that. I think that it's so, and actually not. I'm going to take that back. Not judge a book by its cover. Show everyone the same respect equally, unequivocally. Like, I feel like we're getting into a society whereby people, sometimes things get too transactional. Do you know what I'm trying to say? And I think that part of we go back to knowing myself is that I just enjoy conversations. I just enjoy meeting people. Like, I'm the person that talks to people on the plane. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Unless I'm sleeping in it, but like I'll talk to someone on the plane, like just find out a bit about people. So I think that just make respect be equal. Yeah. And I think that the world would be a better place. Not as good as Antoinette's, but
can I just slip something? Well. It is good. I want to slip one more thing in as well. Always position yourself to be learning something all the time, which I'm surprised you didn't say that one.
Yeah,
actually.
Everyone's a teacher, everyone's a learner.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's a teacher, everyone's a student.
Yeah, and you're always a student. We'll never get to a point where we can know everything before we die. So that means there's always opportunity to learn.
It's my favourite saying. Yeah. It's my favourite saying.
I love that. Now, guys, it's been a pleasure having you both down. I know you've got a busy schedule as you're out here, so thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this episode.
I've
really enjoyed it.
Like, it's in my head now, like, you know, it's mad because, like, you know, go back to the product of your environment and stuff. And I've always been someone that has always thought about investments and stuff, like, but it's just now, like, my focus right now is like when I go home, okay, wait, let me kind of pick up that thing that I probably put down before, kind of in terms of, you know, like, so you spark the fuse again, you know.
100%. You've lit a bit of a fire in us. I need to go. I love that. I've got 3 ideas already. I'm trying to stay focused. Okay.
Yeah, no, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.